This man has been without parents since childhood, but today, he received a relic from his father. He thought it was some kind of family heirloom. It turned out to be just an ordinary necklace. Full of confusion, Xianwu returned home. He carefully pondered its significance. But just as he clenched the necklace, a bizarre event unfolded. The necklace suddenly emitted a dazzling light. As the light spread, in the next second, he was transported to a blood-red, hellish world. In shock, he suddenly heard a ding. A system panel appeared before his eyes. Then a system window popped up. An impossible achievement has been unlocked. You are the last survivor in hell. Xianwu was so terrified that he froze. He shouted desperately, "Hey, is anyone here?" As he kept shouting, he noticed a glowing crystal nearby. Upon closer inspection, it was crystal moss. Such a large piece could buy 3 apartments in Beijing. Just as he was overjoyed, a sinister presence quietly crept behind him. He suddenly felt a strong discomfort in his body. The next moment, he coughed up a large amount of blood. Xianwu collapsed in pain, unable to breathe. At this moment, the system prompted, currently under attack by enemy forces in a state of poison-induced paralysis. However, there was nothing around Xianwu. Not a single shadow in sight. Where were these enemy forces? Just like that, he suffocated and died in confusion. At this moment, the system provided an answer. You were killed by floating dust. Survival time, 4 minutes and 32 seconds. But in the next moment, Xianwu suddenly woke up again. Upon opening his eyes, he was forced to accept a task. Survive until dawn. At this point, Xianwu was both terrified and confused. He ran aimlessly in the center of hell. Now all he wanted was simply to stay alive. But the floating dust was everywhere. What was the point of running? After experiencing 8 cycles of death, Xianwu couldn't run anymore, thinking, I'm doomed anyway. I might as well become a human purifier. In the days that followed, he spent every moment inhaling the floating dust. After 28 rounds of S-rank inhalation, the toxins in Xianwu's body reached a critical point. He turned himself into a creature of poison. His blood evolved into toxic blood, leaving Xianwu utterly speechless. But now the question was, how could he bring these crystal mosses back to reality? At that moment, he suddenly heard a strange noise behind him. Looking closely, a mosquito the size of a rat appeared. Frightened, Xianwu turned and ran. However, these hellish mosquitoes were too fast. In an instant, they surrounded him. In seconds, they drained Xianwu completely dry. But the mosquitoes didn't fare well either. Because of Xianwu's toxic blood, every single one of them exploded like beautiful fireworks. When Xianwu woke up again, the system sent a notification. Congratulations, you've killed over 100 monsters at once. Toxic blood ability level increased. The man was trapped in hell for a full 20 years. In those 20 years, the floating dust alone killed him nearly 1,000 times. He barely managed to turn himself into a toxic being, gaining immunity to the poison, only to be drained countless times by giant mosquitoes, reduced to a dried husk repeatedly. Thanks to his toxic blood, Xianwu lost count of how many mosquitoes he had killed. Finally, upon his next revival, the system prompted, congratulations, you've killed a total of 100 million mosquitoes. Toxic blood ability level increased, unlocking a new skill. Disassembly. Xianwu picked up a nearby wooden stool to test it. With a crack, the stool shattered into pieces. This skill would be perfect for demolitions. But since there's a disassembly skill, wouldn't it be better to have a creation skill as well? Unexpectedly, just as he mentioned it, the system actually unlocked the creation skill for him. He quickly gathered a pile of hellish mosquitoes. After disassembling them all, he obtained various mosquito wings, common. Then he used the creation skill. A hell dart was successfully crafted, and it was of rare quality. If he could bring this back to reality, it would be a one-of-a-kind item. Suddenly, Xianwu came up with a great idea. Since he had so many leftover materials, why not mix them all together? The next moment, an absurd sight unfolded. The limbs of the mosquitoes combined to form an egg. The comic author's imagination is truly wild. At this moment, the system notified, achievement unlocked. Legendary item created. Creation skill upgraded significantly. However, this egg is extremely mysterious. It has a 50% chance of survival or destruction. It can only hatch under specific conditions. Xianwu pondered for a moment. Does it want me to hatch it myself? Just then, he heard a loud noise behind him. Turning around, a goblin was hunting for prey. It quickly spotted Xianwu hiding behind a rock. Then it lunged at him, nearly slicing his head off. Xianwu refused to back down and summoned a wooden stick to fight back. Then he glanced at the goblin's level 20. Isn't he totally doomed? The goblin rushed forward with a smooth series of attacks. Xianwu could only dodge desperately. A single mistake could cost him his life. Soon, Xianwu's stamina was nearly depleted. He quickly took out the hell dart and threw it with all his strength. The goblin looked at his poisoned right hand. He lifted his machete with force. With one slash, he cut off his own arm. Xianwu was stunned. Was this guy insane? While he was in shock, the goblin suddenly leapt behind him. With a lightning-fast half-moon slash, he killed Xianwu. Who would have thought that this little creature had a regeneration ability? Before leaving, the goblin sneered and mocked. Are there still survivors here? Xianwu, lying on the ground, gave a sinister smile. Goblin, huh? Wait till I revive, and you'll be the first I deal with. He had been trapped in this abyss for a full 20 years. For those 20 years, he experienced countless death cycles. Finally, upon this revival, the system prompted, congratulations on surviving the first night in the abyss. Reward upgraded. Silver box changed to gold box. Return stone activated. Next mission will start in 14 days. As the necklace emitted a bright light, he was back. It felt as if the rain was welcoming his return. At this moment, Xianwu was overwhelmed with emotion. He knelt on the ground and shouted angrily, "I'm home. I finally made it back home." He then tore off the necklace from his neck, ready to smash it to pieces in anger. But on second thought, all those precious treasures and skills were obtained in the abyss, so he reluctantly held back his fury. At that moment, Yaman saw that Xianwu was there. She hurriedly threw a coat over him. "If you get poisoned by magic, won't you be doomed?" The two went back inside. Yaman thoughtfully prepared some toiletries for him. After showering, Xianwu asked about the date for tomorrow. To his surprise, it was only the 11th, which meant that 20 years in hell were equivalent to just 2 days in the real world. Xianwu was still pondering this. Meanwhile, Yaman was watching him with interest, thinking, since when did he get such a good physique? She then prepared to go out and buy him some clothes. She told him to stay put. After Yaman left, Xianwu summoned his inventory. He opened the golden box inside. Suddenly, there was a ding sound. Due to his sulfur monosulfide rank luck title, the reward upgraded once again. "Congratulations, you've obtained the legendary skill, Battle Assistant." Hearing it was a legendary skill, Xianwu was immediately thrilled. After all, only 7 people worldwide possessed legendary skills. Now, the 8th legendary skill wielder had emerged. Xianwu decided to test out the skill's effects, but he was caught red-handed by Yaman. Embarrassed, he scratched his feet awkwardly. The two chatted for a while, and Xianwu learned that Yaman was studying crystal moss. Xianwu said, "Perfect, I have a big treasure to show you." And he pulled out a 1 kilogram crystal moss. Yaman was instantly shocked, her expression changed. "Oh my god, such a large crystal moss. And with such high purity. Where did you get this?" Xianwu didn't reveal the origin of the crystal moss. Instead, he changed the subject, asking Yaman to sell it for him. They could split the profits when it's sold. After all, he had plenty of it. Yaman was moved to tears. "Why are you so good to me?" With everything settled, Xianwu prepared to head home. Yaman suddenly called him back. "Why don't you stay here tonight?" The next morning came quickly. Xianwu hugged his pillow, looking utterly defeated. Mumbling to himself, "This woman is terrifying." This man had just returned from the abyss, only to be taught by his female colleague all night. That night's lesson made Xianwu realize women are scarier than the monsters in hell. Soon, the day of the crystal moss trade arrived. The two headed to the meeting spot. Xianwu was extremely cautious, fearing any unexpected events. When he turned around, he saw a fierce-looking man. Taking a closer look, isn't that Ma Dong-sok, the slap superhero? Thinking their contact was Ma Dong-sok, it turned out to be the elderly man reading a book nearby. Thankfully, it was a false alarm. The two sides then introduced themselves. After shaking hands with the elderly man, Xianwu clearly felt that this person's strength was extraordinary. He took out the crystal moss. They completed the transaction at the agreed-upon price. After the deal, the elderly man even bid farewell to Xianwu. Xianwu shivered instantly, realizing that the man had known who truly owned the crystal moss all along. Yaman teased him from the side. "Well, the transaction went smoothly, right? Next time, don't be so paranoid. Relax, look at that, an instant income of 680,000 yen. Isn't that sweet?" The scene shifts. The elderly man is now reporting the situation to a mysterious man nearby. The man looked curious. How could such a valuable treasure appear on the market? The elderly man explained that crystal moss of this purity only exists in 5-star dungeons and above. This person's strength is definitely extraordinary. Intrigued, the man instructed, "Investigate this person's background." The elderly man agreed. "No problem, leave it to me, Captain Li Gtae." A few days later, Xianwu returned to the abyss. After several journeys back and forth, he finally understood the time ratio between the abyss and reality. However, one thing still puzzled him. Why did his location always change when he returned to reality? Xianwu opened the Battle Assistant skill panel. To his surprise, the skill description appeared. It turns out this skill could record and control enemy movements. Not only could it predict the direction of enemy attacks, but it could also improve his attack accuracy. It was practically like a human cheat code. Suddenly, a system window popped up. Beginner mission activated. Please proceed to eliminate 5 beginner scarecrows. How terrifying is a disciplined man? Even in the abyss, he did 3,000 pull-ups, ran 50 kilometers, and trained in boxing for 8 hours every day. But with his rapid strength growth, his punching bag finally couldn't withstand his daily hits, bursting open completely. Xianwu realized from this that this ordinary training routine was no longer enough for him. He needed even tougher challenges. Suddenly, the system notified, "Beginner mission activated. Proceed to eliminate 5 scarecrows." Xianwu was instantly furious upon hearing this. "I'm already level 7, and they still consider me a beginner?" He prepared himself and headed to the mission location. Upon reaching the entrance, Xianwu felt a chill down his spine. The place looked eerie. It didn't feel like a beginner mission at all, and the things in front of him weren't scarecrows. They were clearly a bunch of metal monsters. If they suddenly started moving, it would be terrifying, so Xianwu quickly hid. After observing for a while, he noticed that these robots didn't move at all. Now Xianwu wasn't afraid. He walked right up to the robots. He punched the metal head with all his strength. However, not only did it leave the opponent unharmed, it also activated all of them. The robots spoke in unison. Target identified for battle. Commencing equal trial. This was bad. The metal men matched Xianwu's level exactly, and they were impressive in both attack and speed. Xianwu was quickly forced back under pressure, but this only fueled his fighting spirit. He grinned. "You metal men are going down." Xianwu activated serious mode. His focus was razor sharp, analyzing every flaw in his opponents. He wouldn't miss a single opportunity. Clearly, Xianwu's attacks were effective. However, the real trial of terror was just beginning. Target information updated, commencing level 2 equal trial. In the next second, the metal men locked Xianwu in place, pummeling him relentlessly, but at the same time, Xianwu's attributes were rapidly increasing. After hours of painful torment, Xianwu could no longer endure. He dropped to his knees, feeling that his organs were completely shattered. But for Xianwu, this was nothing. He looked at the hateful metal men, and slowly rose to his feet. A dazzling light with lightning flashed from his hand. He then summoned his custom-made weapon, the Savage Log. It was of rare quality, low durability but high attack power. Xianwu grabbed the log and charged forward. One heavy swing landed on a metal man. To his surprise, the hit was powerful, knocking off one of its arms. The metal man looked at its severed limb, and then stated, target information updated again, commencing level 3 equal trial. Xianwu was in complete shock. Oh no, this time I'm really doomed. This was a robot scarier than Iron Man from the abyss. Devolves to match its opponent's strength. In short, the stronger he got, the stronger it got. Xianwu was no match for them at all. A level 3 equal trial was way beyond his capability. He could only use a bit of cleverness. Tying them together, one-on-one was his only chance. After numerous death cycles, Xianwu's strength surged, with a flurry of attacks. The metal monsters were battered and broken. All that was left was to destroy the core. And he could finish them off completely. And he could finish it off completely. Just as Xianwu raised his fist, the target information updated again. Level 4 equal trial activated, and Xianwu paused. He loved fighting strong opponents. Only through this could he become stronger. But he got a bit too cocky. After the battle started, he realized he was no match for the metal monsters. He was completely overpowered. Not only was he unable to fight back, he was also forced to endure numerous brutal death experiences. Xianwu was left completely numb. How do you know every fighting technique? But that's what makes it fun. Let's keep going. Xianwu sprang up, throwing a straight punch, only for it to be easily dodged. He adjusted his stance, delivering a powerful high kick to the metal monster. This kick prompted the metal monster to update its target information. Level 5 equal trial activated. Xianwu was thrilled, but in the next second, the metal monster's fingers jabbed toward his eyes. Xianwu fell to the ground in agony, rolling and screaming. But it wasn't over yet. The metal monster opened its mouth and lunged. It took a huge bite, sinking its teeth into his calf. Xianwu was in shock. Are you a zombie or a robot? Xianwu unlocked yet another bizarre death. After enduring 90 rounds of deadly training, Xianwu's strength had increased significantly. Now, these metal monsters were no longer a threat. Even if they attacked in swarms, he could easily take them all down. The system notified that the mission was completed. The training was over, but Xianwu had no intention of stopping. He kept smashing the metal monsters, until he was satisfied they were in pieces. Xianwu roared to the sky, releasing all his pent-up rage. This moment, he felt immense relief. The scene was immensely satisfying. Then he remembered he hadn't checked his mission rewards. Opening his inventory, he found a shiny card. It read Cradle of Heaven, but upon closer inspection, the card had transformed into a lonely piece of cloth. The system notified. Acquired Cradle of Heaven, a damaged legendary item. It can restore damaged bodies and promote growth. Hearing this, Xianwu had an idea. I've still got that egg from disassembling mosquitoes. Let's see what happens. This was a magical cloth that could stimulate growth in anything. And this egg was a mix of countless mosquito limbs. What kind of creature would emerge from their fusion? An hour quickly passed. In the blink of an eye, an hour had passed. In the end, nothing happened. Just as Xianwu was about to remove the cloth, he heard a sudden cracking sound. The eggshell started to break. With a burst of dazzling light, a cute white-haired girl appeared before him. The girl opened her eyes, sleepily rubbing the corners and letting out a soft yawn. Seeing the petite, adorable mosquito girl, Xianwu tentatively extended his hand. To his surprise, she bit down on it immediately. Xianwu shuddered in shock, goosebumps rising all over. He quickly shook her off. It felt just like when you're asleep, and a cockroach crawls over your pillow. The girl slowly got up, pouting and saying, I'm so hungry. Xianwu sighed, then handed her a piece of candy. She looked at it and shook her head, then pointed at him. Xianwu understood her intent, thinking, this little one really is a monster that eats people. She then pulled out a straw from who knows where, and started drinking his blood. Afterward, she even politely licked the area clean. But the next moment, the girl got a bit too bold, declaring Xianwu as her servant, and demanding that he supply her with sweets. Xianwu couldn't stand this. He grabbed her, ready to squeeze her on the spot. The girl immediately backed down. I'm sorry. I was just joking. Xianwu let it slide, then asked what she really was. But when he asked, the girl started to sob. Xianwu muttered, aren't you just a mosquito spirit? Suddenly, the girl remembered her identity. She told Xianwu, I am the fairy of Doomsday, the one who devours all beings at the end of the world. Hearing this, Xianwu felt a chill run down his spine. Should I kill her now? He thought, but then he realized she didn't seem hostile toward him. Maybe I can train her, he thought. So he decided to keep her as a pet. He even gave her a name, Renian. The girl happily accepted the name. And so, this strange partnership of man and mosquito began. At that moment, the metal monsters he had defeated began to stand up. They started advancing toward Xianwu. Seeing this, Renian flew over and punched them with her tiny fists. She smashed the head of the metal monster. Xianwu was stunned. Oh my god, she's so fierce. But in reality, these metal monsters weren't hostile. They all pointed toward a nearby abandoned city. Xianwu went over to investigate. He found a skeleton lying on the ground, with a letter clutched beneath it. He opened the envelope, only to find a description of events in the future real world. In this world polluted by toxic gas, newborns couldn't survive for more than 10 seconds. Thus, humanity slowly approached the brink of extinction. After reading the letter, Xianwu was silent for a long time. It turned out that this abyss he was in was actually the real world 3 years into the future. At that moment, Renian found a strange return stone nearby. Xianwu examined it closely, noticing it was different from his own return stone. Just as Xianwu touched it, the return stone emitted a flickering golden light. A mysterious force began to pull him in. Then, suddenly, the return stone shattered, and Xianwu regained his senses. He found that the symbol on the return stone was now imprinted on his palm. The system notified him, "The stars are watching you." In an instant, a field of void appeared above Xianwu's head. Renian sensed trouble. He ditched Xianwu and quickly ran away, leaving poor Xianwu to be slowly swallowed by the void. However, he didn't die from it. Instead, he found himself in a mysterious, unknown realm. At that moment, the system displayed another message. "Star fragment has been absorbed into your body." Then the star of progress, Baoru, was drawn toward the star fragment. After observing him for a while, it expressed disappointment in Xianwu's values. Grumbling, it left in frustration. Xianwu was indignant. "Who do you think you are? Who are you to judge me?" He then questioned the system. "What exactly are these stars?" It turned out each star had its own master. These star masters possess their own domains of power. They lend their immense power to people through fragments, making them rulers, to expand their domains. Hearing this, Xianwu suddenly understood. So that wasn't a return stone. It was a star fragment. As he realized this, a brilliant light burst out in the sky. Colorful stars began to descend from above, circling around Xianwu, observing him carefully. But this time was different. All the stars were fond of him. Some suggested he rule the world from the shadows, while others urged him to wipe everyone out, becoming the Lord of Death. One even suggested that he train in basketball for 2.5 years. In short, they all saw potential in Xianwu, but each with their own agenda. The system urged him to choose a star to follow. But Xianwu wasn't a fool. He didn't know the background of these stars, so making a hasty choice could be risky. Hearing this, a fragmented star master in deep space let out a sinister laugh. It seemed a dreadful scheme was awaiting Xianwu. In this world, humans could borrow immense power from the star masters. There was the broken star Lord Kau, the weeping star Beldi, the star of hunger, Gulam, the whispering star Monstery, and the conquering star Gul'dan. Now, all the star masters had their eyes on Xianwu. They had all noticed his potential. They all scrambled to recruit him. But Xianwu felt very helpless. Am I really that evil? So, I'm just a complete villain. Xianwu asked, "What will change if I choose one of you?" As soon as he finished speaking, stars flashed in front of him, and various images appeared in his mind. These images represented possible futures based on his choices. He couldn't help but marvel at the power of the stars. However, Xianwu didn't let the power go to his head. He questioned the star masters. "What's the price?" The star masters answered simply, "You only need to serve and follow." After thinking it over, Xianwu decided not to choose any star for now. "I'll figure you out first and decide later." Hearing this, the conquering star Gul'dan was displeased. He lost interest in Xianwu. The remaining star masters, however, gave him time to consider. With the disappearance of the realm, Xianwu returned to the abyss. But at some point, the whispering star Monstery had quietly followed him. It then released a bolt of lightning beside him. It then turned and left as the system notified. "Monstery has awakened part of your abilities. You have acquired the legendary skill, Control." Xianwu thought, are even the star masters starting to compete now? Looking at the devastated future world, Xianwu suspected that the abyss might be the work of the star masters. He needed to uncover the truth behind them. 3 days later, Xianwu returned to the real world. The first thing he did upon returning was find Yuman. He was eager to talk to her. Later, the two sat in the living room, having a meal. The TV reported unusual incidents of monsters frequently escaping dungeons. It seemed to foretell an impending disaster. The next day, Xianwu arrived at the ability user's examination. After a simple 3-part physical test, it was finally time for the critical combat power measurement. The standard was set at a combat score of at least 100. It was now Xianwu's turn. The examiner told him to reach in and tightly grasp the orb inside. However, the moment Xianwu lightly touched the orb, it made a cracking sound and shattered instantly. Xianwu, dumbfounded, said, "I swear, it moved first. Do you believe me?" This man had only lightly touched the combat power orb, and in the next second, it shattered completely. Everyone present was stunned. How high must his level be for that to happen? Xianwu was terrified, thinking, "I just got here and already broke something big." The examiner reassured him not to worry, saying it was just a minor malfunction. After some repairs, Xianwu attempted the measurement again, but the result was the same. The orb shattered again. The examiners had never seen anything like this, and could only give him a provisional review. Now, he only needed to clear a dungeon once to become a true hunter. The scene shifts. At this moment, Li Jite had just arrived at the exam site. He came this time to recruit the Butterfly Group into his Taesung Corporation. After all, only top talents like these would catch Li Jite's attention. When Li Jite asked how the other newcomers were doing, his subordinate informed him of a very unusual ability user. This person's blood was toxic, and not just any kind of poison. It was incredibly powerful and dangerous. Jite found this intriguing and decided to observe him closely. At the entrance of the simulated dungeon, a man approached Xianwu and handed him a badge, then turned and left. Xianwu looked puzzled, wondering why this man was so mysterious. Then, everyone entered the simulated dungeon. From above, Li Jite announced to everyone, "This is a 2-star simulated dungeon. Your task is to collect each other's badges. The one with the most badges will be ranked first in this test. You have 3 hours to do your best." After hearing the task, the others began to discuss their plans. A guy with glasses suggested they act together. This way, they could avoid others taking their badges and could team up to kill monsters. And he invited Xianwu to join them. Xianwu scoffed, declining the offer outright with a simple reason. He didn't want to split the reward for first place. That was all. They found Xianwu's attitude absurd. How could one person win first place alone? One of the big guys took offense at Xianwu's arrogance. He grabbed Xianwu's collar, trying to take his badge. Xianwu responded, "That's actually a good idea." Then, with a quick backhand slap, he knocked the guy out cold. He smirked wickedly, "Hand over all your badges." Seeing this, the guy with glasses surrendered without a word, and tossed his badge to Xianwu. After all, Xianwu was clearly the strongest here. Meanwhile, on the other side, the butterfly group's red butterfly was battling dungeon monsters. However, these were no ordinary monsters. They were mushroom robots developed by DW Industries. Not only were they highly combat capable, but they also had magic reflecting abilities. Without teamwork, these robots were tough to beat. Yet, to Xianwu, this monster was hardly a challenge. It even made him want to laugh. He'd anticipated something thrilling, only to find it was just a hunk of metal. Faced with this modified robot, the protagonist was unfazed, almost amused. He took off with a quick leap, delivering a straight punch that dented the robot's face. He followed up with an uppercut, sending it flying. After an intense battle, all the nearby robots were dismantled by Xianwu. He shouted to the sky, "This is so boring." He thought this trial would offer some challenge, but it was just like this. Then, Xianwu used his skill, Disassemble, to retrieve the badges hidden inside the robots. That moment, a loudspeaker announcement declared that due to significant changes in badge counts, the current badge totals would now be displayed. Third place, Red Lotus with 7 badges. Second place, Red Butterfly with 9 badges. First place, Xianwu with 16 badges. Who would have thought that the dark horse of this trial was Xianwu, quietly building strength in the shadows? Then, he extracted some special meat pieces from the robots. He placed these pieces gently on his arm. To his surprise, the next moment, the meat began writhing and clinging to his skin. Xianwu had a sudden idea and quickly used his crafting skill, creating a modified robot suit for himself. Now, he was fully equipped. It's time to go hunt down some cute little guys. Meanwhile, on the other side, Red Butterfly stared in disbelief at the scoreboard. She'd been fighting robots non-stop, yet she still hadn't surpassed that man. Suddenly, she heard rapid footsteps nearby. A team of strangers appeared, and without a word, they attacked Red Butterfly. Red Butterfly stomped hard on the ground, leaping into the sky. Using her unique moon step technique, she easily evaded their attacks. She then leapt down, and a minute later, every last one of them was defeated at her feet. The onlookers recoiled in fear upon witnessing this scene. They were terrified of angering this Mulan. Suddenly, screams came from the back of the crowd. A muscular woman was barreling her way toward Red Butterfly. It was Red Lotus, who came to tell her sister to stop. Their main goal was to join the Northern Expedition plan, and they'd already gathered enough badges. However, Red Butterfly had other plans. She glanced back wistfully at her teammates, then walked away through the air, disappearing from everyone's sight. Meanwhile, Xianwu was sampling meat pieces from the robot. Taste was so delicious that Xianwu happily spit it out in surprise. Suddenly, he felt a chill run down his spine, sensing something rapidly approaching from behind. Indeed, it was Red Butterfly herself. She came specifically to challenge Xianwu to a duel. She wanted to see for herself how strong this mysterious man really was. Xianwu, of course, wouldn't refuse, but honestly, the level difference seemed a bit too big. The supposed strongest female warrior, Mulan, against a man who had just returned from the abyss. Who would come out on top? Red Butterfly launched the first attack. A powerful punch landed squarely on Xianwu. Though he blocked the blow, he could feel the incredible strength of this woman. Red Butterfly didn't give him a moment to breathe. She turned and delivered a powerful kick. Xianwu was forced to retreat step by step, barely managing to dodge. A single misstep could leave him battered and bloody. But if this kept up, his stamina wouldn't last long. As he looked at this overwhelming woman before him, Xianwu had to use his best skills now. Energy began gathering in his hand, and he clenched his powerful fist, ready to strike. At that moment, Red Butterfly charged fiercely toward him. In the next instant, their attacks clashed violently. The sheer force of their collision nearly shook the nearby building apart. With an evil grin, Xianwu looked on, as Red Butterfly sensed something was wrong. Her right arm suddenly emitted a strange sound. In the next second, her arm suffered severe internal damage. Her entire right arm twisted grotesquely. The outcome was now decided. Red Butterfly had no strength left to fight back. She handed over her badge willingly, admitting her defeat without regret. Just then, Red Lotus suddenly appeared. With a powerful body slam, she hit Xianwu square in the side. She sent him flying 300 meters away. Xianwu was completely bewildered. He hadn't even seen what hit him before he was airborne. As he steadied himself, he saw it was a muscular demon-like girl. And the guy with glasses was there too. Seeing her injured sister, Red Lotus was furious. She threatened to tear him apart on the spot. Xianwu, not one to back down, was about to clap back at her. But before he could say anything, an announcement came in that the match was over and the final results were revealed. Third place, Xianwu with 21 badges. Second place, Xianwu with 69 badges. First place, Red Butterfly with 88 badges. Xianwu was stunned. Shouldn't I be in first place? It turned out that just moments ago, Red Lotus had secretly combined her badges with Butterfly's. That's how they secured first place. Xianwu was frustrated. He had won fair and square. Who would have thought they'd exploit a loophole? To avoid causing a scene, Xianwu held back his anger. But Red Lotus wasn't done. You injured my sister's arm, and think you can leave without paying? This statement completely enraged Xianwu. He unleashed his mastery skill. Suddenly, black threads appeared one by one, wrapping around Red Lotus's neck. Her pupils widened in fear. She froze, unable to move. From her perspective, Xianwu looked even scarier than the depths of hell. The muscular warrior girl collapsed, trembling in terror, for she had seen a man even more terrifying than the demons of the abyss. Due to Xianwu's skill, Red Lotus began experiencing severe hallucinations. Fear completely enveloped her. If the white-haired girl hadn't treated her in time, she might have died from sheer exhaustion. Xianwu was equally shocked. He had only meant to teach her a small lesson. He didn't expect the Star-Lord's power to be this strong. Taking advantage of their distraction, Xianwu quickly slipped away. Meanwhile, Li Jite, observing from outside, was completely captivated by Xianwu. Such power from an ability user who hadn't even reached level 10. He had to recruit him. Soon after, his men found Xianwu, and got straight to the point, saying, "Your strength is impressive. We hope you'll join TAE Sung Group. We can elevate you to heights no hunter has reached before." However, Xianwu's response left them speechless. "Forget it, compared to the stars, you're a universe away." Frustrated, his subordinate reported back to Jite, saying that no matter what they offered, he was unmoved, and he mentioned something strange about stars. Hearing stars, Jite's pupils widened instantly. It seemed he had his own secret connection to the stars. Meanwhile, Xianwu was on his way home with Yuman. Curious, Yuman asked, "What's in that big box of yours?" Xianwu wasn't sure either, since the box was actually a gift from Red Butterfly, as a peace offering for Xianwu to forgive Red Lotus. Butterfly had gone out of her way to apologize, and presented him with the box. Xianwu opened it, finding a brand new pair of rare quality gloves inside. Butterfly was clearly sincere. The two then arrived at the parking lot below his building. Just as they were about to get on the elevator, Xianwu sensed a powerful killing intent. He told Yuman to quickly get back in the car, and to stay put until he returned. Following the source of the murderous aura, Xianwu entered an alley, where he found corpses strewn everywhere. The culprit was none other than his business partner, Mr. Lin Huishuo. It turned out these bodies belonged to a gang from Country R. The crystal moss Xianwu provided had stirred up the market, and everyone was trying to find its source. If it weren't for old Lin cleaning up the mess, Yuman might have been kidnapped countless times by now. But besides their business, old Lin had another proposal. He suggested that Xianwu join the TAE Sung group. Xianwu realized that this guy was actually the mastermind behind TAE Sung. But Xianwu still stuck to his decision and declined the offer. Old Lin lowered his hat brim, his eyes glinting red as he said, "Seems we need a different way to talk." This man, who had lived for 880 years, had single-handedly taken down a notorious mafia group, and now he intended to teach this arrogant young man a lesson. Sensing the threat, Xianwu's title as Hell's Strongest automatically activated, balancing the massive level gap. Without waiting for Xianwu to explain, the old man swung his plus 99 staff. Luckily, Xianwu ducked in time. Otherwise, he'd be either dead or severely injured. Taking advantage of his opponent's recovery time, Xianwu pulled out his massive fist, and landed a heavy punch on the old man's face. Old Lin was unfazed at first, but a second later, he was sent flying, thinking, "This kid's got some power." Xianwu, with a fierce look, shouted, "Why don't you go home and play chess, old man?" But the real show was just starting. Old Lin slowly removed his coat, revealing his sharp, fitted suit. Then he tossed his coat aside, and drew his divine weapon, the white chalk sword. It wasn't a cane at all. It was a scabbard concealing his sword. Xianwu was tricked. He didn't expect the old man had such a hidden move. The old man started swinging his sword at Xianwu. Each strike emitted a powerful sword. Even a slight touch could tear the skin. Xianwu quickly widened the gap, making a swift, evasive leap, and landed perfectly behind him. But just as he thought he had found the old man's weak spot, the white chalk sword shot straight toward him, almost knocked out his front teeth. Xianwu seized the moment, grabbing the old man by his collar, and activated his control skill. In the next moment, the old man's mind went blank, lost in a trance. It seemed he was completely trapped in a hallucination. Just as Xianwu was about to slam him down to finish the job, the old man snapped back to consciousness. He pressed his sword to Xianwu's neck, drawing a stream of blood in an instant. But he didn't kill him. Instead, he cut Xianwu's wrist. After all, they weren't quite at a life or death situation yet. Old Lin only wanted to recruit him and learn his background, but he overlooked one fatal detail, and that was Xianwu's toxic blood. By the time he realized, it was too late. Xianwu had already grabbed his head, and smashed it hard against the wall. But old Lin wasn't going down that easily. With a swift elbow strike, he broke Xianwu's arm, and kicked him flying across the room. He quickly pulled out a health potion and poured it over himself. But as he looked forward, Xianwu had already fully recovered, without a single trace of battle scars on him. This respawn ability is just too overpowered. Old Lin looked at his poisoned, useless sword and sighed, "Forget it." let's end this here. After all, my goal was just to recruit you into Taeying. If you're not interested, I'll leave it at that. But just at that moment, Xianwu's response caught the old man off guard. If you're willing to join me, I'd be more than happy to have you. This man has no shame. After giving the old man a brutal beating, he still had the audacity to try and recruit him. Old Lin thought this was absurd. He figured this kid's brain was damaged from the fight, and turned to leave. However, Xianwu knew very well that someone with both such strength and intelligence gathering skills was too valuable to let go. It would be a real shame to give up on him. So he used a taunting tactic. He mocked, Taeying is just a second-rate organization, not even in the top 3 ranks. Instead of joining such an overhyped, superficial team, why not team up with me? What do you say? Old Lin thought Xianwu was way too arrogant, a guy who didn't understand the basics of respect. Thinking he could surpass Li Zhentai, he drew his white chalk sword once more. Xianwu sneered, oh, you want to fight me again with that poisoned, broken sword? Old Lin didn't respond with words. Old Lin suddenly swung his sword, releasing a powerful sword energy. The attack caught Xianwu off guard, but the strike didn't harm him at all, because Old Lin only wanted to teach him a lesson. If he really intended to kill Xianwu, he wouldn't have allowed him to stand here and talk. Then, Old Lin gave him some advice. There are many in Taeying stronger than I am. Your path is long, young man. But Xianwu wasn't discouraged at all. He would prove to Old Lin that he's stronger than Li Zhentai. Seeing Xianwu's determined and confident gaze, Old Lin was silent for a moment. Then he explained, Li Zhentai's strength is due to both his personal abilities and the entire support system of the Taeying group. For a kid like you, without resources or background, what do you have to surpass others? Xianwu replied, 2 weeks. I only need 2 weeks, and by then, you'll admit I'm stronger than Li Zhentai. Old Lin didn't doubt him and simply said, I hope your training environment is better than Li Zhentai's. When it comes to environment, bet Old Lin would never imagine in his lifetime that no one in this world has a training environment as terrifying as Xianwu's. Back in the depths of hell, Xianwu fought those goblins like a mad dog. He finally took down about 700 of them. Xianwu's level increased to 15. At that moment, Rinian suddenly reappeared after a long absence. She took out her straw and began to drink Xianwu's fluids. Xianwu sighed helplessly, though she abandoned him before. How could he stay mad when she was so cute? Looking at the mountain of goblin corpses, Xianwu remembered the one goblin that had tormented him repeatedly. If he encountered that guy again, he'd make sure to destroy him. Just as he finished speaking, he turned to see that familiar goblin. The goblin walked toward the bodies of his comrades, looked up, and roared furiously. Then, he charged at Xianwu, ready to tear him apart. But Xianwu was already prepared for battle. Bring it on, let's end this. By now, Xianwu had become numb to death. After all, that goblin had killed him nearly 500 times. He thought his newly gained strength would easily defeat Gilson. Yet, he was instantly killed in one strike. And it even triggered a hidden mission called Enemies Collide. Now, as Xianwu strategized on how to beat him, Gilson suddenly appeared behind him. With a single strike, he took Xianwu down again. And so they chased each other for 7 days and nights. Gilson was relentless, never letting him go. Although Xianwu resisted several times, he simply wasn't strong enough to beat this guy. Repeated painful deaths only fueled Xianwu's hatred. He swore he'd make that beast pay dearly. A few days later, Gilson realized he hadn't seen Xianwu in a while, but he didn't let his guard down. He knew well that this guy not only had resurrection powers but was also cunning. Just then, a goblin hurriedly approached Gilson. He reported that someone had sabotaged the villagers, poisoning the water supply. Looking around, all he saw were frail, sickly goblins. Even their fish had become inedible. If Gilson didn't act soon, the villagers would eventually starve to death. Furious, Gilson ignored the villagers' pleas and stormed out of camp. This time, he didn't just want to kill Xianwu. He wanted to trap him forever in a cage. Gilson's ears twitched slightly as he heard movement. Just then, a hellish dart flew his way. Turning around, he saw it was indeed Xianwu. Oddly enough, this time, Xianwu didn't choose to flee. He muttered under his breath, run while you can, you beast. Or you'll suffer a miserable death at my hands. This sudden change of behavior. Gilson was momentarily stunned. Xianwu strode forward confidently. With one hand, he blocked Gilson's attack. Xianwu declared, I only want revenge on you, not your entire clan. But if you push me too far, I can't guarantee what I'll do next. These words hit Gilson right in his weak spot. He fell to his knees, begging Xianwu not to harm his family. He offered his own life in exchange for their safety, pleading with Xianwu to keep his promise and spare his clan. Xianwu agreed to his request, but just as he picked up his sword, Gilson changed his mind, launching a sneak attack that sent Xianwu flying. He then leapt high into the air, with a powerful slash downward. At this point, he had completely lost his sanity, relentlessly hacking away at Xianwu's body, until it was left a bloody, immobile mess. But he had forgotten his real goal was to capture Xianwu. Only when he realized his mistake was it too late. Xianwu was already back to full health. The tables had turned. In front of Gilson, Xianwu revived right before his eyes. He landed a crushing blow to Gilson's side, then seized him by the throat with a fierce grip, and delivered a brutal left hook, launching him into the wall, where he was stuck. But it wasn't over yet. Xianwu, like an unstoppable force, flew forward. Another punch nearly ruptured his liver. With a devilish expression, Xianwu loomed over him. In that instant, it was hard to tell who the real villain was. The once fearsome Gilson, now reduced to a battered shell, was helpless. Soon, he was left broken and defeated. It wasn't that Gilson didn't have the power to end Xianwu. In his mind, killing Xianwu should have been as easy as squashing an ant. But that overconfidence had been his undoing. It gave Xianwu the chance for a counterattack. Gilson tried to resist one last time, only to fall to his knees, coughing up blood. Now he was utterly powerless. The once proud and mighty Gilson. Finally, Gilson lowered his pride. He knelt down, desperately pleading with Xianwu not to kill him. He even used a pitiful tactic, saying if he died, then his entire clan would perish too. And hadn't Xianwu said he didn't want to harm his family? But this heartfelt plea didn't sway Xianwu at all. Instead, it fueled his darker nature. Now, he not only intended to kill Gilson, but also to consume his entire clan as experience points. This heartless declaration left Gilson utterly hopeless. And so, he met his end at Xianwu's hands. But Xianwu didn't truly mean it. It was simply a brutal act of revenge. Just then, the system chimed in with a long-awaited notification. Hidden quest completed. Goblin defeated. Silver chest reward upgraded to a golden chest. Level up by 3 levels. Additionally, you've gained the attention of Star Fragment Xianwu. After the battle, Little Renian also arrived to join him. Then Xianwu carefully searched Gilson's body, hoping to uncover the source of his strength. Upon raising his hand, he discovered strange ancient symbols. As Xianwu looked on in confusion, the symbols on Gilson's hand dissipated. The black symbols condensed into a dark sphere in midair. In the next second, the sphere unleashed a beam that pierced Xianwu's right hand. With a stunned look, the system notified him. Xianwu's star fragment has been absorbed. Legendary skill, control, acquired. Back in the real world, 3 months passed. During that time, she constantly missed Xianwu. But today, the man she had yearned for had finally returned from hell. Yaman, half awake, gazed softly at Xianwu, and asked, "Did you eat yet? I'll make something for you downstairs." Xianwu sensed a strange atmosphere. He held Yaman's hand, wanting to say something. But before he could speak, Yaman trembled as she spoke. "What do you mean by this? Every time, you leave for so long. And then, I don't even know when you'll be back. I have no idea what you're hiding, or even who you really are. But at least give me some peace of mind. Do you know how awful it feels to constantly worry?" Just then, Xianwu pulled Yaman into a tight hug. "Calm down," he said. "I'll tell you everything." Then, Xianwu explained everything to Yaman, all the details. And in that moment, he also confessed his feelings. "Yaman, I love you. Will you be my wife?" Hearing those long-awaited words, Yaman's heart filled with joy. She buried her head in his chest. Then, the two shared a deep, intimate moment. Looking into Yaman's enchanting eyes, Xianwu could hardly resist. As for what happened next, let's just say, I'll spare you the details. The next morning, old Lin had been waiting downstairs for some time. As usual, the trade proceeded smoothly. But this time, Xianwu decided to change the terms. He wanted to double the selling price of the crystal moss. If old Lin didn't agree, he wouldn't sell it. Hearing this, old Lin was furious. He thought, this kid is really pushing his luck. Xianwu smirked, and then revealed crystal moss of even higher quality than before. He told old Lin, "Do you understand the concept of resource monopoly?" Old Lin knew how valuable this was, so he reluctantly agreed to the terms. But then, Xianwu flicked something with his finger, and old Lin caught it midair with a reflexive move. Xianwu told him not to ask questions and just open it. When old Lin saw what it was, he was stunned. It was none other than the legendary ring of Erhaste. Wearing it would temporarily double his perception. This move made old Lin even more curious about Xianwu's background. Xianwu seized the opportunity to sow discord. "Even Li Jichai never gave you something like this, did he? If you stay by my side in the future, legendary treasures like this will be plentiful for you." Old Lin didn't answer, simply giving him a calm look. But Xianwu knew very well that the balance in old Lin's heart was slowly tilting in his favor. At that moment, Yaman received a call from Xianwu. A bit busy, she quickly came downstairs. She thought it was urgent, but then saw a flashy luxury car parked in front of her. Turned out, Xianwu just wanted to make an impression. But then Yaman asked the most crucial question. "Do you even have a driver's license?" And so, Xianwu awkwardly stayed silent, quietly sitting in the passenger seat as they drove home. In the boxing gym, an old man was pummeling a young trainee. In the conversation, old Lin lectured him on the benefits that squads and corporations offer to hunters. He explained that if Xianwu joined the Tang group, there are only benefits and no drawbacks, old Lin insisted. But Xianwu remained firm, rejecting his proposal. With one final, forceful strike from old Lin, the sparring match ended. Xianwu thought to himself, this old man sure holds a grudge. Then he asked, "Do you know about the stars?" The mention of stars, old Lin frowned. He'd only heard about them among top players but wasn't deeply familiar. After their chat, old Lin remembered the main purpose of their meeting. "Would you be interested in trying out a dungeon? Even if you're stronger than most hunters out there, you don't have any records showing you've cleared a dungeon. Without results in this field, people will just see you as an inexperienced rookie. So this time, you have to go." Unable to resist the pressure, Xianwu arrived at the Qingxi dungeon entrance the next day. There, a woman was ringing a gong. As she took count, Xianwu noted her name was Zhou Shuyi, an inspector from the Peak Squad, responsible for ensuring the rookie's safety on this trip. As she briefed the group on the dungeon details, a wave of nausea suddenly hit, and the strong smell of alcohol wafted out. Xianwu thought, can a drunkard really be reliable? Then, everyone began introducing themselves. Aside from one yellow-haired guy with a 2-star level, the other teammates were all 1-star. When it was Xianwu's turn, Instructor Zhou's brow furrowed, and in an instant, she was right in front of him. leaving Xianwu utterly bewildered. With her pouting lips, he thought, if this were a movie, I'd kiss her right here. Instructor Zhou then asked if he had a weapon. Without a word, Xianwu summoned his eternal dark fang blade. Seeing this, Zhou looked surprised. You must have some special abilities, right? With her alluring, pouty lips, Xianwu thought, if this were a movie, I'd kiss her right here. Instructor Zhou then asked, did you bring a weapon? Without hesitation, Xianwu summoned his eternal dark fang blade. Instructor Zhou looked surprised at the sight. You must have some special abilities, right? Seeing this, the blonde guy couldn't hold back. He swung his backpack off, revealing an array of gear he had prepared. Grabbing a knife, he pointed it at Xianwu's face, saying, this isn't just some playground. But before he could finish, Instructor Zhou instantly teleported over, grabbing his leg, and twisting him into a 1800-degree flip. She then raised her long blade. She jabbed her blade near his ear with a fierce snap. Then she demanded, don't you know that drawing weapons outside the dungeon scares civilians? The blonde was so frightened he nearly lost it right there, quickly apologizing multiple times. With that, the group got ready to enter the dungeon. Xianwu noted that this woman's strength was definitely something else. Feeling excited, he muttered to himself, rise. A dark sludge appeared behind Xianwu, and from within the sludge emerged none other than the goblin Gearson, defeated by Xianwu. Zhou Shuyi led Xianwu and the others into the depths of the dungeon. She informed the team, the first objective to clear this dungeon is to retrieve a return stone from the goblin cave. Xianwu thought to himself, this feels a lot like die. Then Zhou reminded them, unless there's real danger, I won't intervene. Feel free to act as you see fit, Zhou added. The blonde quickly gathered everyone together, and as he discussed strategies with the team, Xianwu interrupted skeptically, what on earth are you talking about? This is absurd, none of that makes any sense. The blonde wasn't too pleased with that. Are you looking for trouble, kid? Everything I said, I learned from Top Hunter live streams. You don't know squat. Zhou quickly stepped in, advising Xianwu to work with his teammates instead of going solo. Then asked, can you explain what you find odd? Xianwu proceeded to give them a lesson. First of all, there's no need to clear away grass. Goblins have an exceptional sense of smell, Xianwu explained. They can easily distinguish between the living and the dead. Plus, the main area to watch isn't the head, it's the ankles. In such dense jungle cover, there's no way these short goblins would climb high to ambush anyone. The blonde was about to argue further, but Zhou elbowed him back into place. She wasn't necessarily siding with Xianwu, but he was entirely accurate in his analysis. This extensive dungeon knowledge made Zhou question if he was really a rookie. Xianwu, with a casual expression, said, I did a bit of research before coming, that's all. As they debated, they suddenly heard a rustling in the forest. A goblin burst through the foliage. A goblin charged forward, wielding a machete aimed directly at Xianwu. In a split second, Xianwu spun around, delivering a powerful kick, sending the goblin flying 200 meters through the air. The goblin landed lifeless upon impact. Everyone looked on, jaws practically hitting the floor. They couldn't believe how strong he was. Zhou quickly reminded everyone to stay united. Let's clear this dungeon before celebrating. With renewed teamwork, they pressed on, defeating goblin after goblin. At this pace, they would complete the dungeon in no time. Yet Zhou couldn't shake a feeling of unease. Why did some of the goblins seem terrified? As she pondered this, a scream echoed from nearby. Zhou dashed over to investigate. They all froze in horror at what they saw. Goblins were brutally slain and tied to stakes, their lifeless bodies on grim display. Zhou instantly knew something was very wrong. Zhou quickly called everyone to gather around her, but as she looked closely, she realized Xianwu was missing. She called out his name loudly, but he was nowhere to be found. Then, from the nearby bushes, emerged a fully armed goblin. It was none other than Xianwu's subordinate, Gilson, known as the Hellbound Shadow King. He possessed a terrifying ability beyond comprehension. With a mere gesture, he could revive corpses and command them as his loyal followers. After successfully summoning Gilson, Xianwu assigned him a single mission: to eliminate every monster in the dungeon. Ironically, these monsters were Gilson's own kin, goblins. Hearing that he had to slaughter his own kin, Gilson angrily shouted, calling Xianwu a scoundrel. Xianwu gave a sly grin and threatened him, saying if he didn't obey, the first thing he'd do upon returning to hell would be to destroy Gilson's tribe. Grinding his teeth in fury, Gilson had no choice but to comply. Just then, as they finished speaking, a bald goblin suddenly appeared behind them. Gilson walked over to it without hesitation. But Xianwu's eyes suddenly widened. He could somehow feel Gilson's intense disgust. He could sense Gilson's deep inner turmoil. As soon as he realized this, Gilson raised his right hook and swung it down hard, gripping the goblin's neck tightly, with a terrifying expression as he spat. This creature, dressed in grass skirts, dares call itself a goblin? What a joke. With that, he tore the goblin in half. Seeing this, two nearby goblins trembled with fear. Gilson turned towards them and jumped over in a flash, slashing them into a bloody mess. Xianwu said nothing, as he could feel Gilson's overwhelming hatred. Once the small fry were dealt with, it was time to regroup with the others. Meanwhile, Zhou Shuyi was frantically searching for Xianwu. As she searched, Xianwu suddenly emerged from the bushes. Zhou, enraged, pointed her finger at him and scolded him fiercely. Luckily, everyone was unharmed, so she decided to let it go. Luckily, everyone was safe. Zhou Jia decided not to make a fuss about it. Then Zhou Jia reminded everyone that this place was very strange. As soon as we find the return stone, we should head back immediately. Just as she finished, the return stone appeared in front of everyone. Seeing the hope of going home, Huang Mao rushed forward without a second thought. But just as he was about to touch the return stone, a trap hook suddenly appeared, tripping him to the ground. Then, Gilson moved in to kill Huang Mao. In a crucial moment, Zhou Jia quickly ran over. She blocked Gilson with her dagger just in time. Then the two engaged in an intense fight. Meanwhile, Xianwu was quietly watching everything unfold from behind. He was very curious about how strong the coach from the Peak Squad really was. He wondered just how powerful Zhou Shuyi was. To test Zhou Jia's true strength, Xianwu had deliberately planned for Gilson to fight her. After successfully rescuing Huang Mao, Zhou Jia quickly maneuvered behind him to try and surprise him. But Gilson wasn't easily outmatched. He swiftly drew a Nepalese knife. While blocking the attack, he also managed to scratch her arm. The two continued their fierce battle. Xianwu carefully analyzed Zhou Jia's every move. Her strength was probably not weaker than Gilson's at level 21. She might even be 10% stronger than him. Realizing he couldn't overpower her, Gilson turned and sprinted toward the trainees. Seeing this, Zhou Jia quickly followed to stop him. Halfway there, Gilson suddenly stopped in his tracks. He then jumped into the air abruptly. With a powerful overhead kick, he caught Zhou Jia off guard. She was severely injured and spat out blood. Zhou Jia was filled with confusion. How could such a creature appear in a one-star dungeon? Not only was it well-armed, but it was also incredibly cunning. Zhou Jia glared at Gilson intensely. It seemed she had no choice but to use that skill. Then, the magic within Zhou Jia began to swell. The next second, a sudden sound was heard. In an instant, Zhou Jia disappeared from everyone's sight. Seeing this, Xianwu was stunned. He urgently told Gilson to get out of there. But as soon as he finished, Zhou Jia appeared right behind him. She raised two daggers, and stabbed him hard in the abdomen. Even though Gilson had a tough physique, this blow still took a heavy toll on him. His vision was struggling to keep up with Zhou Jia's speed, and Zhou Jia gave him no time to recover, seizing every opening for a lethal strike. Just as Zhou Jia was about to finish him off, Gilson pulled out a smoke bomb and slammed it to the ground. The smoke burst out instantly. When it finally cleared, Gilson had his sword at Wang Mao's throat. He demanded that Zhou Jia put down her weapon, or I'll kill this pants-wetting fool right here. Zhou Jia was shocked once again. Turns out this guy can talk. Though surrendering now could save Wang Mao, letting him escape would be an unimaginable threat in the future. After a moment of hesitation, Zhou Jia steeled herself and said to Wang Mao, "I'm sorry, this is on me." Hearing this, Wang Mao felt utterly hopeless, but just then, Xianwu made his move. He tossed a stone into the air.